The first time I saw her, she was standing in the rain outside St. Mary's Hospital, holding an umbrella over a homeless man while she got soaked to the bone. I was rushing to my car, briefcase over my head, cursing the downpour that had ruined my expensive suit. She was just standing there smiling, as if getting drenched was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't stop. I should have, but I didn't. That image haunted me for weeks. The way her hair stuck to her face, the way she didn't seem to care about anything except making sure that old man stayed dry. I didn't know then that she would change everything about the way I understood what it means to be human. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, though I wouldn't learn that until much later. At the time, she was just a stranger who appeared at the edges of my carefully constructed life, a whisper of something I'd forgotten existed. I was Marcus Webb, a corporate lawyer who'd spent 15 years climbing ladders and crushing competitors, convinced that success was measured in billable hours and corner offices. My ex-wife used to say I had a calculator where my heart should be. She wasn't entirely wrong. The second time I saw Sarah was at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office. I was there for my usual morning ritual, a triple espresso and a scan of the financial news, when I noticed her sitting with a young woman who was crying. Sarah wasn't just listening. She was really there, leaning in, holding the woman's hands, her entire being focused on whatever pain was spilling out across that small table. The young woman's makeup was streaked, her voice occasionally rising above the ambient noise. But Sarah never flinched, never looked uncomfortable. She just stayed. I found myself watching them, my coffee growing cold. When the young woman finally left, her shoulders a little straighter, Sarah sat back and exhaled slowly, as if she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Then she noticed me staring. Instead of looking away, she smiled. Not a polite stranger smile, but something warmer, something that suggested she saw me, really saw me in a way that made me uncomfortable. "She's going to be okay," Sarah said, as if we'd been in the middle of a conversation. Sometimes people just need someone to witness their pain, you know? I didn't know. I nodded anyway. That's how it started. This unlikely friendship that would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. Sarah had a way of collecting people, gathering up the broken and forgotten like a gardener tending to wilted flowers. She worked as a social worker at a non-profit that helped domestic violence survivors, but that was just her day job. Her real work happened in the margins, in the spaces between official duties and personal time. Over the next few months, I kept running into her. At first, I told myself it was coincidence, but eventually I had to admit I was seeking her out, drawn to something I couldn't name. She invited me to volunteer at the shelter where she worked, and I surprised myself by saying yes. Me, Marcus Webb, spending my Saturday mornings serving breakfast to women and children fleeing abuse. My colleagues would have laughed themselves sick, but there was something about being there, about doing something, that had nothing to do with profit, margins, or quarterly returns, that felt like waking up from a very long sleep. Sarah never preached or judged. She just lived her life with this quiet intensity, as if every interaction mattered. Every person deserved her full attention. One evening, after a particularly hard shift at the shelter, we sat in her beat-up Honda Civic, eating Chinese takeout from styrofoam containers. That's when she told me about her daughter. Her name was Emma, Sarah said, staring straight ahead through the windshield. She was 7 when she died, leukemia. The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my food, suddenly unable to swallow. "It's been 9 years, Sarah continued, her voice steady but soft. At first, I thought the grief would destroy me. I wanted it to. I couldn't imagine a world where I kept living and she didn't. She turned to look at me then, her eyes bright with unshed tears, but also something else, something fierce and determined. But then I realized that the only way to honor her life was to live mine in a way that mattered. Emma was so full of love, Marcus. She never met a stranger. She'd give away her toys to kids at the park, share her lunch with anyone who looked hungry. She taught me that kindness isn't weakness, it's the bravest thing we can do. I sat there, stunned, thinking about all the years I'd spent building walls, protecting myself from exactly this kind of pain. Sarah had lost everything, and instead of becoming bitter, she'd become more open, more generous. It didn't make sense. It defied every cynical certainty I'd built my life around. "How do you do it?" I asked. "How do you keep giving when the world took so much from you?" Sarah smiled, but it was sad around the edges. Because Emma would want me to. Because every person I help, every moment of kindness I offer, it keeps her alive. Her love doesn't end just because she's gone. It moves through me now. That night changed something fundamental in me. I started really seeing the people around me, not as obstacles or opportunities, but as human beings carrying their own invisible burdens. I took on pro bono cases, something my firm partners thought was career suicide. I spent less time in the office and more time at the shelter. My father, a retired Wall Street banker, told me I was throwing away my future. I told him I was finally building one. The turning point came on a frigid Tuesday in February. Sarah called me at 6 in the morning, her voice tight with urgency. One of the women from the shelter, Maria, had fled in the night. With her 2 kids after her ex-husband found out where she was staying. She had nowhere to go, no money, and the temperature was dropping below freezing. "I need your help," Sarah said. "I know it's a lot to ask." I was at her apartment within 20 minutes. We spent the next 3 days in a whirlwind of activity, finding Maria emergency housing, navigating the legal system to get a restraining order, coordinating with social services. I used every connection I had, called in favors, and probably bent a few rules. Sarah worked alongside me, tireless and focused, her determination a living thing. When we finally got Maria and her children settled into a safe, warm apartment with donated furniture and a stocked refrigerator, I stood in Sarah's kitchen, exhausted and exhilarated in a way I'd never experienced closing a corporate deal. "Thank you," Sarah said, hugging me tight. "You saved them, Marcus." "We saved them," I corrected. And honestly, I think they saved me. It was true. Somewhere in the chaos of those 3 days, I'd found something I didn't know I was missing: purpose, connection, the bone-deep satisfaction of doing something that mattered. But life has a way of testing us right when we think we've figured things out. 3 weeks later, Sarah collapsed at work. The diagnosis came swift and brutal. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Advanced, aggressive, terminal. I remember sitting in the hospital room when she told me, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of antiseptic sharp in my nose. Sarah was calm, almost serene, while I felt like the floor was falling away beneath me. "I'm not afraid," she said, taking my hand. "I've had 9 beautiful years since Emma died. 9 years of making a difference. That's more than a lot of people get." "It's not enough," I said, my voice breaking. "It's not fair." "No," she agreed. "It's not. But Marcus, listen to me. You have to promise me something. Promise me you'll keep going, keep showing up, keep choosing kindness even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears streaming down my face. Sarah lived for 4 more months. In that time, I watched her teach a masterclass in dying well. She kept working as long as she could, kept showing up for people, kept radiating that inexplicable light even as her body failed. The shelter held a farewell party for her, and the room was packed with people whose lives she'd touched. Woman after woman stood up and shared stories about Sarah's kindness, her unwavering belief in their worth, her refusal to let them give up on themselves. I spoke last, barely holding it together. "Sarah taught me that we're all connected," I said. "That every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we can't imagine. She taught me that love doesn't end, it transforms. And she taught me that the measure of a life isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you give away." Sarah died on a Tuesday morning in May with me holding her hand. Her last words were, "Thank you for seeing me." But she was wrong. She was the one who saw me, who saw through all my defenses and armor to the person I could be. She was the one who taught me that selflessness isn't about martyrdom, it's about connection. That humanity is found not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of love. It's been 2 years now. I left the corporate law firm and now run a non-profit providing legal services to domestic violence survivors. I think Sarah would be proud. I still volunteer at the shelter every Saturday. I still try to see people the way she saw them, with compassion and without judgment. Sometimes I stand in the rain without an umbrella and I think of her. I think of how one person's kindness can reshape another person's entire world. I think about Emma, and how her love continues to move through all of us who were touched by Sarah. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she changed my life by showing me what it means to be truly human. This is her story, but it's also mine. And it's yours too if you choose to see it. Because we all have the power to be that person for someone else. To be the light in someone's darkness. To choose love over fear. That's what she taught me. That's what I'm still learning. And that's what I hope to pass on, one person at a time, until her ripples reach the edges of the world.